Mute. Hi. Hello, everyone. I hope you hear me just fine. Welcome to the Qual Scale webinar from Humanate. We intended to have this quarterly webinar on this very dynamic and very interesting topic. I am Wendy from the Hong Kong office. Originally, we want this to be hosted by Sharanya, our head of Qual APAC. Unfortunately, she's sick today, so she's not available. So Shirley from the Sydney office and I would be hosting this session today. So, which is an overview of what core skill is and why we also think it's important that the future of research as we know it. So basically nowadays, all presentations starts by saying that the world is changing faster than ever, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to say that. That's not the key thing, what we're focusing on today. We all know there's incredible space. Let's move on. What we want to focus on is how Asia has changed and what this means for the future of insights. Imagine Asian customers a decade ago versus what we have today. A lot of areas in Asia might need to catch up on digitally, technologically, but by and large, compared to a decade ago, we know that digital infrastructure around has changed and interaction with the digital universe has totally transformed. From a student in China to a housewife in Surabaya, they have access to mobile devices powered by high-speed connectivity. As researchers, this means that we can access anyone, anywhere, much faster and easier than before. It's not just about access to the digital infrastructure, it's also about the ability to use it. The world of social media has pervaded almost all marketable segments. It has led to consumers not only knowing how to interact online, but actually have the openness to share details about their lives, thoughts, and opinions. They consume and generate content in the form of reviews, routines, diet, health, beauty, parenting, travel, etc., and an openness to share their lives with the world at large. This screenshot is what we got when we look up the Each With Me hashtag on TikTok, or basically if you search through Google. So for researchers, what it means for us is that customers are more willing to invite us into their life stage and give us access to real-time, real-place insights. And all these set up for the next generation of insight methodology. As a young researcher, that I was told that there was a quant, and the qual is usually very distinctive, it's very separated. There's not a lot of people who can do both unstructured deep data, and there are a very big pool of quant researchers who would validate with structured questioning. This is a very hard line usually, and one would need an army of researchers, a lot of people to do both. But in today's world, we can challenge that. What if we ask hundreds of people for unstructured, open responses? And what if we could aim for depth without the trade-off of scale? And what would we do it without, 1,000 moderator hours? And this brings me to the biggest and most recent disruption of all. I'm sure we still are reveling in the changes that generative AI are bringing us is everyone's favorite topic. And for us, it's allowed us to rethink what speed really means and how we can do this without an army of researchers that we've just mentioned. And this is where Qual Scale comes in. Now, we believe in Qual Scale work best with online communities, which is something, of course, we are quite famous for. It gave us ongoing direct access to the people we want to understand, letting us go beyond surface level opinions and into real behaviors, emotions, and needs. And that kind of deep, consistent connections is what helps brands truly decode complexity and move with confidence. Now, before we get to Qual Scale, we need to do some fundamental shifts in our approach to insights. And what we observe is that there will be three shifts ahead of us. The first one is about chasing more data and actually not chasing more data, which is actually, I think, quite an habitual thing that we have been doing. And instead, we should maximize what's already known, I think across a lot of us actually have done many, many topics that have decades or years of research already. There's already a lot of data along with what's available publicly. So it's about starting to map what lies around us before we blindly go into and chase new research pieces, assuming that we know nothing. Actually, there's a lot that we potentially already know. It's just how to structure those, make a good hypothesis so that we can move on to the actual research stage with a more meaningful and fundamental foundation. So things can be more focused and more strategic. So this would also feed into a much sharper, insightful design discussion on tasks. We need to look at Qual at scale, not just at research tools, but also for of human stories and emotions, which could be unlocked with at scale and soul. When we blend AI with human thinking, with our Qual scale communities, then we can actually get to the soul of our audience. And in terms of also in the next stage, in the case study, we'll also see how creative questionings brought out the best from our communities and our insights. And when our members are much more engaged, when presented with more imaginary and interesting tasks, we will also share a little bit more in terms of our experience on sacrificial concepts and an insight generation tool. So more on this later on. And yeah, often a lot of energies goes into getting insights fast, but I think it's something that we want to reframe. It's not about how fast we get into the insight. It's about how fast we can turn them into marketing outcomes that actually make the impact. How can we, adjust these methodologies and find a good, and also utilize technology to make sure we land insights quickly and leading to solution faster. So we want to push it also one section beyond, basically. Sorry. Hang on. Right. So I would pass the time over to Shelley.
Thanks, Wendy. Now, a common belief about insights and speed is that speed often comes at the cost of depth. But true impact doesn't come from just talking to more people. It actually comes from going deeper with them. For us, Qual at scale is not just about data collection. It is a rethink of the insights process to enhance depth, speed, and agility. And that brings me to our second major shift. So to stay ahead in this ever-changing world, we need to focus more on capturing the soul of our audience. And if we want to unlock real opportunities for our brands, we can no longer rely on the one-dimensional insights. Rather, we need a holistic, contextual understanding and dive into people's individual mindset, the social factors that influence them, the cultural forces at play. And only by exploring all of these layers can we truly understand what drives people. So when we talk about scale, most people will think about numbers and reaching more people, but that's just one dimension. In today's complex world, there's another, often more powerful dimension, depth. It's about capturing more from fewer people, going deeper, because when we do that, we get closer to the heart and the soul of our audience. Let me put it this way. Do we learn more by speaking to 500 people for 15 minutes each, or by spending 75 minutes with 100 people? The total time's the same, but the learning, the impact, that's a whole different story. So you might ask, how do we actually go deeper? Well, like I mentioned earlier, we spend more time with people. That extra time lets us peel back the layers and really get to know them. But it's not just about time, it's also about how we engage with them. We blend different techniques. We might combine mobile ethnography, storytelling exercises, and mission-based activities so that we are not only capturing what people think, but also what they feel and do, ultimately giving us a more intimate and granular understanding. Just to the next slide. Next slide, Wendy. Thank you. And this blend of activity, it's not only important for depth, but it's especially important because we know that people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. As Wendy mentioned earlier, it is becoming increasingly hard to get their attention, even to participate in research. So the question for us is then, how do we ensure that our research activities stand out and are more interesting and engaging than the show they're watching on Netflix. Qual at scale communities are perfect for this because they're like a creative playground. They give us the flexibility, a full toolkit of research methods we can mix and match to go deeper. And by doing so, it gives us a 360-degree view of people's lives and their world. One of the biggest advantages of these communities is the mobile aspect, because we're literally in the palm of their hands. We can meet people exactly where they are in real time. That gives us something incredibly powerful, a sneak peek into their homes, their routines, their lives. It's like seeing the world through their eyes and not just hearing about it after the fact. And when we get this close to our customers, when we really truly immerse ourselves in their world, we start to see things we couldn't from a distance. We can spot new opportunities for growth and find ways to stay truly relevant. More specifically, we can see how does our brand fit into their broader lives? How are they interacting with our category? And what is their real experience with our brand? The good, the bad, and everything in between. Of course, it's not just about what people are sharing spontaneously. We also have a dedicated moderator in the community, someone who can pick up on what's not being said, ask the right follow-up questions, and gently dig deeper. It's really this human touch that makes all the difference in uncovering richer and more meaningful insights. And when we get this close, we're able to collect huge amounts of rich human input at scale. Let's take this study you see in the background, for example. We simply asked people to share 4 meaningful moments from the past year, and the result, a flood of images, stories, and deeply personal reflections. This example here shows a journey of growth, from launching businesses and learning through failure to finding joy in baking and connecting with others through food. It's really quite a powerful mix of personal and professional moments that shows how much people are willing to share when they feel seen and heard. Now, we might all agree that getting close leads to richer understanding, but there's often a perception in the research world that this kind of research takes too long, not just in collecting the data, but also in analyzing and making sense of it. And that's where AI changes the game. Using our AI visual decoding canvas, we can move faster. Like our other canvases, it is grounded in proven techniques. In this case, it's the ethno techniques which we have translated into AI-powered approaches. Just like a human researcher would, it would help us identify themes, patterns, detect outliers, etc. But it does so at scale and at an incredible speed. And by combining AI with human expertise, we can go even further. It doesn't just stop at helping us understand what's being shared. We know that pattern detection is something it's really good at, but it also helps us to detect what's missing. And you might ask, why does all of this matter? By doing so, it really enables us to connect insights to expectations, helping us uncover gaps and blind spots that might otherwise go unnoticed. Sometimes the strongest insights come from what's not being said. And this is just one angle we can dive into within the canvas as well. When we use our visual decoding canvas as a whole, we can accelerate analysis and uncover deeper, more actionable insights. And more importantly, it also proves that today speed, scale, and depth no longer have to be trade-offs. We can now scale with soul. Back over to Wendy for the part you're probably most excited to hear about.
Thanks, Shelley. So in this part, let's see Qual at scale in action. We have utilized this concept to conduct a study with Philips to understand Gen Z as parents. Now, Gen Z has been a hot topic for years. Many brands have tried to explore their values, habits, digital fluency, how recklessly they might be consuming social media. Now, here's the twist. This very young segment is now entering a new life stage, parenthood. In 2 years, actually, Gen Z will account for over 50% of all births. And parenting is one of the most complex, emotionally charged, and deeply personal experience anyone can go through. So trying to understand this new generation of parents will require more than just surveys or surface level interviews. It will require time to let the stories unfold naturally and tools that allow us to observe, listen, and engage in real time in the real environments. And that is where Qual at scale comes in. Over the course of 4 weeks, we engaged with 115 respondents from the US and Germany. We invited both Gen Z and Gen Y parents to open up about their daily lives across the course of 2 weeks. Their routines, parenting philosophies, struggles, joys, daily chaos, and also the joyful wins. This led to over 2,200 interactions and more than 1,700 collected pictures and videos. We also talked to future Gen Z parents to understand their plans and expectations on being a parent. We designed a series of creative, emotionally resonant tasks to help Gen Z parents open up in ways traditional interviews and surveys simply can't. For example, we start from story of my life, who they were before they become a parent versus who they are now. Mood board exercises to uncover emotional associations as a parent, letter to parents, their own parents, to explore how their own upbringing and family of origin might have influenced how they lead their own parenting, and more. Now, each of these activities are crafted to uncover not just what they do, but how they feel, what they value, and what they need. This rich mix of exercise gave us a multidimensional view of the parenting journey, raw, real, and deeply human. Now, these activities might not be particularly new, especially if you already have a community running. There's no reason you can't want some of these on a smaller scale. But if we're talking about doing multiples of these activities in one go, scaling to dozen plus respondents, in practice, this volume of data, the time needed to synthesize, and the cognitive note of researchers make it very difficult to do well until now. As Shelley mentioned earlier, with easy access to generative AI, the vision of blending depth with scale is finally practical. Our proprietary platform, Mastermind, enable AI-facilitated synthesis within secure walls. So it's basically ChatGPT 4.0 interacting with your research data. Your data stay protected and your insights stay sharp. We also use structured frameworks and prompt libraries like the canvas we showed earlier that guides both AI and human researchers. The AI do the heavy lifting, consolidating, clustering, surfacing patterns, so we as researchers can focus on what truly matters, asking better questions, spotting the nuances, and telling the story with empathy and clarity. We know that when we talk about Gen AI and research, there have been challenges on whether Gen AI can directly tell us the insights without going through the actual research. So basically just asking ChatGPT. We tried doing that with this study. We asked the same parenting research question to open AI tools like ChatGPT, Copilot. The results are yes, obviously, they would come up with something, but those are relatively generic and surface level, as many of you probably would have experienced. Work-life balance, attuned to mental health, Gen Z would be interested in technology and automation, but it's really missing the heart of the matter. When we derive things facilitated by AI on real data, we find more nuanced challenges, like desperately finding ways to sleep a little bit more, even if it's just 15 minutes, making sure kids are eating healthy when parents barely have time to cook, establishing parent-child emotional bonding while being able to discipline your kids effectively at the same time. So this proves a critical point. AI is only as good as the data it learned from. Without rich human-driven data and input, the impact of AI alone is actually quite limited. So to go even deeper, we use a powerful technique called sacrificial concepts. There are often topics, themes, where it's been difficult for customers to articulate. For example, in this case study, we know that Gen Z are digital savvy, but what's their acceptance level on technology and AI in regards to parenting? That's not something customers can intuitively define where the line might be, which often is a very fine line between being helpful and being invasive or even creepy. So there's where sacrificial concepts comes in. It's a commonly used tool in design thinking. They are intentionally provocative, fictional ideas although, designed to strike honest reaction. So they are not meant to be real products and is not intended to be developed as so. It's just conversation starters to help customers express themselves better. In this scenario, with the facilitation of AI, we create a concept like cry-interpreter, a device that translates the baby's cries into specific needs. So this is one example of the sacrificial concept. It sounds helpful, but what we wanted to prompt are discussions on, for example, what are the role of this piece of technology? Is it the need for emotional validation that there are tools for newbie parents to do their job? Or is it a more structural checklist that help parents when they are too food deprived to think? Would this technology impact the perception of emotional connection? Does the tech enhance or impacts emotional bonding? When might AI be a co-pilot in interaction versus when might it be a replacement? Another example we can share is a concept we showed as CodeMate, a smart kitchen assistant that creates any kind of dish. Now, practically, that we know that's too good to be true, but it again would be a useful conversation starter on nutrition, control on kids' diets, concern over health, what makes up parents in terms of mealtime. Is it total automation or is it just empowerment and ease? The finding we reveal via these sacrificial concepts could then, of course, be applied into any potential offer in the future, not exactly in this format, I might add, but it'll get us one step closer to actionability that we would not get through direct questioning. Now, Phillips understood that decoding Gen Z's parenting mindset was just the beginning. To create real impact and drive action, we have options to go steps further. So that's why beyond just the Qual at Scale community, we also organize consumer connect sections between Philips Teams members and our community participants to after the debrief. Think of it as speed dating, where stakeholders get a chance to lead one-on-one conversations with Gen Z parents and further dive into topics that spark their curiosity. This also creates a space for deeper connections that help build real empathy. On top of that, we focus on making the insights tangible and easy to apply, so teams could see clearly how to bring them into their day-to-day work. Specifically, for this study, we partner with creatives in a global ideation context. For this, we tap into ICA, Humanate's creative crowdsourcing network of designers, copywriters, and creative thinkers. We ask them to design an app that addresses their needs of these future parents. The results are fresh, unexpected ideas that help translate our insights into something real, relevant, inspiring that could be further developed into proposition and offers. And that's it for now for the case study. Um, I will see if there are any questions that we might have in the audience. Let me just flip into the room. Okay, I think there are two pending questions. The first part is in terms of scale, what scale really means and what's the sample size we're looking at commonly, and also the role of human researchers versus AI. Okay, so in terms of scale, usually we'll say around 30 would be a minimum of the number of audience if you want to deep dive. For conclusions, from a traditional call, you usually have 5 to 10 per target audience. But when it comes to scale, that will of course include more people, but also spending more time with them. So that's where the N30 comes from. Going It kind of is a saturated point, when you, of course, if you want to get 100 people, it's feasibly able to do so, but there usually is a saturated point where you get the best of both worlds as in the scale and also giving you the ability to dive with them and with deep with them as well. So we recommend N30 as the point where you get the most proportionate value. And then in terms of the role of human researchers and the extent of AI use analysis, I think one thing we want to stress is that we don't use AI as just a press a button and then we get the output and then we use that as deliverable. That's not how we think AI should be used, especially in the research world, where there is usually context is extremely important in these cases, and which is why there are always tweaks that's needed and there are always rethink. So AI are often used for prompts for researchers as stimulation so we can think deeper and provide you more meaningful framework, storytelling, business implications, so to allow us to think deeper. And also in terms of, it could help in terms of some slight efficiency or help summarize some data at scale, agility of connecting different data points that we have talked before. And it's often an iterative process. So we usually we have something in mind and then we throw into AI to get more inspiration. And then we need to converge again to re-summarize and then to see where we want to go with that. And then sometimes we want to expand, sometimes we just want to tidy it up and do more storytelling. So that's our take on AI essentially. Okay, so I see a question about leveraging the app's native function to collect insight. Um, we do have, if you are leveraging on our community, which would be our Square platform, we do have an app. So that app would allow us to, contact with our community members quite consistently. We said with digital ethnography, some things will be quite valuable. A is a two-way interaction. So a lot of times if we leverage different other platforms or if we do things a relatively more traditional way, that it means that it's difficult to connect with them consistently across different points. So with the app, we will be able to do that. Our app would allow them to upload images, upload videos, share stories, do diaries. So all these are data points that we can collect for Qual at scale. So there are a lot of different ways to do Qual at scale because there are a lot of different ways to do digital Qual. Ethnography would obviously be one very big, very beneficial methodology to do that. But yeah, that's how we use the app, and then we can leverage everything. And then at the back end, we also have some AI tools connected to it, so we could also, or basically, we also have dashboards connected to them, so we can also filter different respondents and then see everything clearly for a synthesis. Okay, let me see if there are any. Okay. So in this case, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope this section gives you an overview of Qual scale and potential it holds to disrupt traditionally held beliefs on Qual and Quant. There will be more topics in this quarterly section, as you will see in the slide here. We hope to see you in future sections. There might be some Q&A still ongoing in the chat. We'll make sure that someone in our team will follow up with you in terms of any questions that you might have, or reach out to your usual contact if there are any follow-ups or anything particular you might feel interested. Have a great afternoon from Hong Kong, and bye for now.